A very good Sunday morning to you. As you probably heard, there has been yet another terror attack in London this time. This is not going to be a very long video because I think I said most of what I want to say last week or when we were talking about the Manchester attack. It seems to me that the elephant in the room has now been seen, and seen by no other person than Theresa May, the UK Prime Minister, by mentioning Islamic extremism for what I perceive to be the very, very first time by not only a leading politician, but by certainly the leading politician here in the UK. I did see a very short clip of Jeremy Corbyn paying the normal lip service to this kind of act, passing on his regrets and his pity to all the victims and the families, but no mention yet again from the Labour benches regarding this particular issue. But it appears that what Theresa May has actually now done has, and I think she used these words herself, where she said, "Enough is enough," which would seem to indicate that things are about to change. What I see actually happening is that the current prevent strategy that's in place, whereby we are depending on family members and members of mosques and things like that to identify anyone who may well be showing signs of radicalization, for them to be reported by, as I say, members of their family, friends, members of the same mosque, that kind of thing, isn't working. So what I see happening is that the prevent strategy, if not scrapped altogether, things will change and it will become much more strict and structured, and assurances will be given to anybody who may feel that they know somebody who's being radicalized, that there is no risk at all of them being identified as the person who reports any measure of radicalization going on. But I did find it very interesting, the tone in which Theresa May gave her statement outside Number 10 after the Cobra meeting. It feels, as I said, that something has changed. Her view, her mentality regarding this has changed, and she has decided, which must have been discussed in the Cobra meeting prior to that statement, that it is about time that the said elephant in the room is actually recognised as being there, and I say not before time. I think the initial problem here is a view that I certainly carry, and that I get the vibe from lots of comments that I made to my previous two videos. Integration in this country isn't happening. It has never happened with a certain section of the community, and we're all aware of what section of community that is. And I don't understand why that is, because I'm old enough to remember the Afro-Caribbeans arriving in the 50s and the 60s, who came along and they settled in and arrived in Britain solely to make life better for themselves. And then I remember in the mid-70s the Chinese arriving. Now, to give you an idea of the integration there, my favourite Chinese takeaway is called Po Fong's Takeaway. Now, the man who owns that, he adopted the first name of Alan. Now, I'm fairly sure, as he arrived from Hong Kong, his name isn't Alan. So that in itself is a measure of integration. He wanted to be seen as a member of the British community. as we're aware, there is a section of community who arrived latterly, who don't seem to want to do that, as I see on a day-to-day basis. In my local market town, Ashton-under-Lyne, there's quite a large Asian community there, and there is the older generation of that community who are still not adopted any form of English. They do not speak English in any way, shape or form, and surely that is a requisite of integration. If I was going to go to live in France or any other foreign country, all I can say is I've holidayed in France, where I was not all the major conurbations. I was in the southern area of France. They don't speak English there, and over a month I spoke as much French as I could, and by the time I was coming home, my French was much improved. So I made every effort to fit in. When I was in Basel not long ago, that is the German-speaking section of Switzerland, I spoke more German there than I had done for 25 years. And that was because I needed to try my best to integrate in that society, even though I was there for a short period of time. So the acquisition of the language, of the home language, is a major important factor in integration in that country if you're looking to stay there for any extended length of time. And I see that not being the case in my locality. It is quite important, I think, that we are all aware as a community, and this doesn't matter where you're viewing this, you may now start to see changes in the areas, in the main conurbation areas, things like security measures which are not obvious security measures on main thoroughfares, for instance, because obviously this attack centred on a bridge, on London Bridge. I think we might find things like concrete flower pots, huge great things with plants in them and flowers which look very, very nice and very, very ornamental, but they're not just there for that. I think you might find that those are put in place to act as, want of a better phrase, bollards to stop this kind of thing happening again, where a vehicle of any description can mount a pavement where pedestrians are walking. So I think we might be able to see changes arriving over the next 6 months. I wager it being that quickly. It is quite interesting that we're being focused on here in the UK. So we've had now 3 terror attacks in either just shy of a month or just slightly over a month. So it seems that we are the focus of interest right now. It will be interesting for me to see things like Question Time on Friday, the Sunday Politics today, to find out whether views of the Muslim apologists that we see being trolled out on these occasions will still come out to put forward that this is not Islam at all, it's something else. Well, hearing the statement from Theresa May this morning, it seems to me that the powers that be are now accepting that it is. Needless to say, my thoughts and good wishes go out to anyone and everyone who is immediately involved or is the family of anyone who was involved. What happened last night in London. My personal feeling is that we need to make it clear to anyone who might be planning this kind of thing that the response times, which I believe in London last night were 8 minutes, and that the response will be, if needed, a fatal response, because I think it was 7 people who took part in it last night, all of which were shot dead by armed response vehicle police officers. But that's really all I wanted to say on this. Quite an interesting statement from the Prime Minister, quite an interesting turn of phrase, and I think it might indicate a change to our landscape, as it were, where things will be put in place to perhaps preempt any further this form of attack, a direct attack of knives rather than bombs or whatever, of actual physical attacks via motor vehicle. So that's it for this one. By all means, as always, leave your comments down below. And I'm sorry this is another downer, but I shall speak to you again very soon. Bye bye.